All right, let's go ahead and continue here. Um, let's go on to another area that I want you to be able to focus on. All right, if you go over here, Tools, Light Lister. Now, this light lister basically is a control panel that lets you keep track of every light in the scene. Now, this is very important that you know where this tool is. For example, if I have multiple lights, and I'm going to throw just standard some standard omnis in here. I'm going to go ahead and click one there. Now we have an omni. And I'm going to just change these to inverse for now. Type inverse, so they're not that strong. Alright, so I got one there. I'm not going to turn on the shadow since this is my main shadow. I'm going to shift drag and duplicate this light here. And I'm going to make an instant but a copy of it. So now I have 1, 2, 3 lights in my scene. And I'm going to go ahead and name these. I'll call this Omni Omni 1. I'll call this Omni 2. And of course we got our spotlight. Now, if I go to my light lister, Tools, Light Lister, you will see I have all 3 lights up there. So I can actually control these all at once. So for example, let's see, I can, let's say I want to switch my main light, which is my spotlight, I believe. Let me click that, and actually I'm going to name the spotlight. We'll just call it Spot 1. Alright, I'll close this out, and I'll reopen the light lister. Alright, so we got Spot 1, Omni 1, and Omni 2. Push that over there. Now, as you can see, I have I have options, or I have access to my multipliers, the colors, turning the shadows on and off, and the different types of shadows, shadow maps, ray trace shadows, and so forth. You got your map size, your bias, and your sample range for each of them. So the cool thing about this is I can sit here and say, well, alright, well, I'm going to go ahead and change my main color maybe to like a light blue. As you can see, it kind of tints it a little bit. Let's change one of my omnis to a green. As you can see, we got the green on the backlight here. And we can consider this a fill light. And I'll explain more about 3-point lighting. And we'll make this a blue. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and render this out. So I have control of my lights. And max, I believe, I don't know what 2011 can hold. Usually, I think the limit used to be 250 lights that you can control at one time. Maybe 300. I'll have to look that back up. But I'm pretty sure it was around 250. Alright, now, so that's a very powerful tool to be able to have. It beats actually coming around, trying to pick your light, and then trying to go and modify each light separately from within here, as to where you can just access it from here. Now, one last thing I want to actually, well, no, actually a couple more things I want to go over. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. Now, your renderer here, if you hold it down, you can see there's a little black arrow there. You have an active shade render, which is this blue one. Now, back in the day, it used to be green. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And what that does is, here, I'll close that out and do it again. What that does is generates a render. It's not the true render, but it's the active shade render. Now, the interesting about this is when you're working, say, like in your 4 viewports, and you're trying to adjust lights, you can actually, this will render on the fly. Now, this is not the true render. Now, the powerful thing about active shade render is when you work with a big scene, for example, say you're doing a building that has 50 different lights in it, on the outside, and you're trying to adjust lights just to get a particular look, you're not going to want to sit there and render that with your regular render. In this case, yeah, we don't have much in the scene, so it renders pretty fast. Let me go to my perspective. And this is my regular render. Now, with your active shade render, what it does is it'll calculate a really heavy scene, And then you'll be able to manipulate your lights on the fly, and it'll update on the fly as long as you don't close it out. So you can start adjusting where your shadows are going to be or what colors they are. So for example, I'm going to click on this. Maybe I want shadows to be a little bit over here, and you can see they update. If I go to my light lister, now this is awesome if you have dual screens, because then you can start popping, control panels to the other side. Now watch when I like start changing my colors around. See how it updates it. Another thing I want to show you is if you actually click on a color, if I click and drag onto a color, I can actually copy it and I'll actually change it to that color, or I can swap colors. Swap it. There you go. And like I said, you can increase your shadow map size. Maybe I wanted to go 2048 for my main shadow. This will update and so forth. Now, I believe your active shade render will not render out, effects like volume lights or anything like that. All right, but I just wanted to share this tool with you. It's very important that you understand what it is, and this is going to really help you light your scenes up. So remember, it's the active shade render. If you hold it down, it's the last render here. Now, I'm not sure what color it is on your viewport. You might be on a different color setting. So mine's a blue. Yours just might look a little different. So especially because I'm on AM light setup. All right, so yeah, be aware of your active shade render, and remember this is not the true render. And then your tools and your light lister, or your light lister and your tools. Remember those, very powerful, and like I said, it'll help you, especially when you're lighting your scenes. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close that out, and I'm going to go to my regular render here. All right, let's go ahead and close that off. All right, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and delete these, and I want to explain a little bit more about your lights here. I'm going to Alt-W out. Now I'm actually going to duplicate another light, and I'm just hitting Shift Drag, and I got two target lights hitting the same spot. Now you got to remember, this is how lights somewhat work. All right, this light, the first light, if we go to our intensity, I want to drop this down to 1.0. All right. Now this one here, 1.0 as well. But notice they are targeting the same spot. So both those two lights hitting together works just the same way as having one light at 2.0. So remember, these are both 1.0. Multiply them by 2 because they're hitting the same area. It works like a 2.0 light. And that's how it is for all your lights. If they cross paths, you have to remember it's multiplying the area it's hitting. So if I render this out, that's a 2.0 light. So now if I delete one of these, then crank this up to 2.0, we would get almost about the same, the same power in the light. All right, now very important that you understand that. All right, now I guess that's pretty much it about the basics of what areas I really want you to focus on. Obviously, when you get to your lights, make sure you're working in standard. Like I said, we got different types of lights, so I can just drop a few in here. You got your target spots, which we have right here. You have your target direct light, and I always throw my lights in from the top. So this is like more for like your sunlight, sunlight, moonlight type of stuff. You also have your omnis. Those are your point lights. And then you got your free spot, which doesn't have, I'm gonna put it from the top so it aims it right down. These are good to like set for track lightings, or just it could be lights for like light poles. It works just like what a spotlight would work like. All right, you have your free target direct, which is the same thing as your target direct, but this one has no target to be able to aim it. And of course you got your mental omnis, which work best with mental ray, the renderer, which is another completely render, and then your mental ray area spot. So we probably won't mess with these too often unless we switch to mental ray. So I'm going to go ahead and delete those. All right, let me just control Z and get rid of that one and the last one. Alright, now the last light I want to explain to you is your global illumination light, which is skylight. It's kind of the old school way of doing global illumination. So let me go ahead and clear out my lights. Instead of me picking all these one by one, I'm just going to go to my hierarchy tool, and I'm going to turn everything else off except for my lights. So I can grab all these, hit shift, okay, now I got all my lights. I'm just going to delete them out. Now the last light I'm going to talk to you about is your global illumination light, and this is your skylight. Back in the old days, like Max 2.5 and so forth, I think all the way up to maybe like 3, 4, I didn't think you had your skylight. And what this was, it creates a dome that has like practically almost like 100 spotlights that circle the area, so it gives you all your soft shadows. Now what I basically do now is I teach you ambient occlusion pass and mental ray. So this is kind of, you know, I mean, we don't use this as much, but sometimes it's good just to, you know, if you want to set up a render and have some simple global illumination. So all you do is put one in there, which we have, and it doesn't matter where you put it in the scene. It could be anywhere. Basically what it's doing is creating this invisible dome. And the old school way, before I put it in, the old school way used to look like this. People would actually build spotlights, and they would shift drag them on an array. You know, they'd be circling the whole area. Luckily, I believe someone made a script back in the day, and it would actually generate like hundreds and hundreds of these lights, and it would give you like this soft shadow look. I mean, of course, with the right settings. But now 3D Max just kind of built it all in skylight, so you just drop it right in there. And when you set this up, you have to actually go to renderer, turn on your light tracer, and make sure it's active, and then just hit render, and now you have this global illumination soft shadow light, or, you know, shadows. And now you have different settings and stuff you can work with. But like I said, these are good for like if you're showcasing a model and stuff. Don't get me wrong, these global illumination renders are awesome, but they do take some time to render out, depending on how complex the scene or the model is. All right, once again, how you do that is I'm gonna go ahead and delete that skylight, drop it in, and of course make sure light tracer is turned on, active. Now if you want to turn it off, just go no light plug and hit yes. Now sometimes it's good to actually go with like a light tracer and counter it with a regular light, like a target spot, to get your hard shadow in the scene as well, and at the same time you have a soft shadow. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn on my shadows, and we'll go shadow maps, and let me check my parameters, look fine, and my shadow map parameters look fine. So if I were to render that out, now I got a hard shadow and my soft shadows. Except for that light is really blown out. Let's go ahead and bring that down just slightly. It's at a one. This is at a 2.0. Keep it at a 1.0. There you go. Still could be toned down a bit, but it gives you kind of a nice global illumination look. Alright, I guess that's pretty much about the breakdowns on, you know, your basics of your lights and stuff. So we're gonna go ahead and get on, you know, onto our first lab, and that's I'm gonna teach you 3-point lighting. Alright, until next time, this is GTM.